It is a very pleasure talking at this forum. I know I'm from Ohio State University. This event was scheduled to be held in the OSU campus. Sorry that
That's
we are
right.
not able to meet with the people in person this year, but we'll try to do that next year. So in this talk, as the title indicates, how to design a deep learning aware MPI library. So today in the morning, Rasika gave a little bit of overview of the deep learning, what is happening with Amazon AWS. So here I'll be trying to focus on how this convergence between HPC and AI is taking place and how people can use existing MPI libraries. Because MPI libraries has been there for many years and people can actually use those libraries to do the deep learning. You don't need any other additional libraries. So this work has been done with my teammates, Amar, Jahanjeev, King, and Hari. So let me just 1 minute. So as you can see here, like just to give you a very high level overview of the deep learning. So here you can see like deep learning has been there in the field for many years. And many people try to see this bigger picture, the AI, and within that we have the machine learning, and then within that we have the deep learning. So typically in the machine learning, people take like the two phases, like you do the feature extraction and then you do the classification. Whereas in the deep learning, now people are trying to combine these two steps and then try to use the giving the inputs how the machines can learn itself. So this is a great topic people have been exploring over the last several years. So for example, from a data scientist perspective, you need to identify like a deep learning is like a solution to a problem. If you have a big data set, then you try to select a deep learning algorithm to use, and then you use a larger data set to train an algorithm. And then in the next case, you can try to find out like how these when you have a new data or an image, you should be able to find out whether your trained model is working correctly or not. So in this context, of course, we had also in the earlier talks, GPUs are gaining a lot of popularity. So starting from like 2014, this ImageNet challenge, almost like 90% of the teams use GPUs. And then at that time, like the ResNets started. But over the years, GPUs are not only catching up. Here I am trying to show like on the top 500 systems, how in the November 19th ranking, we'll in the next 2-3 weeks, we'll have a newer ranking. So in this case, we have 135 out of 500 top HPC systems use NVIDIA GPUs. And of course, there are dedicated systems, DGX1 and DGX2. But at the same time, CPUs are also catching up. So I'll actually try to show you some very good numbers. You can get good deep learning things get done on the CPU. And especially here, if you take a look at like the TAC Frontera system, which is number 5th in the world, you can actually, I'll show you some results scaling up to 2000s of these nodes. And similarly, the next generation systems are coming up like AMD EPYC, also AMD GPUs, and these will be used in the DOE's exascale systems. And at the same time, also domain-specific accelerators for DNNs are also emerging. So in the next few years, you will see a lot of different kinds of hardware solutions coming out. So then the question is, how do we design the software stacks to carry out the distributed deployment? So what I'll be trying to focus in today's talk to exploit HPC for deep learning. So given any kind of a hardware, high performance interconnect, storage systems, how we can scale out. Many times people have done scale up. That means within a node, if I have some amount of GPUs or some amount of CPUs, we can take those resources and try to scale up. But the question is, data always has a limit. Like I can only put 8 GPUs or 16 GPUs or so many number of cores I can put. But then if I want to handle very large data sets for learning, I need to scale out. And this is the focus of this talk. So in this context, let me try to give a little bit of background. At least I'll start with TensorFlow, how it started over the years. So if you take a look at the distributed TensorFlow, in order to scale out, we need to do communication across the nodes. So in the beginning, it was the the system which was proposed, or the communication stack which was proposed, is the gRPC, that is Google RPC. RPC is for the remote procedure call. And then you can actually also have accelerated gRPC with RDMA. So that was the kind of a starting point. Over the years, people also went into this gRPC plus X, so that the gRPC can be used for bootstrap and rendezvous operations, but the actual communications can take place with X. That is like either it can be MPI, it could be verbs, it can also be GPU direct RDMA. But then over the last several years, people found out some limitations here in scaling. And in this context, this no gRPC solution was introduced. And Baidu one was the first one to start with some MPI-based primitives. And now what has happened, this newer stack, some of you would have heard of this Horobird stack from Uber, has been catching up. And then under Horobird, you can actually link it with any existing MPI libraries, or it can also use the Nickel library from NVIDIA, which Rasika mentioned in the first talk. So in the focus of my talk will be mostly focusing on this MPI, because as many of you know, MPI libraries have been running on all the HPC systems for over last 20, 30 years, and they have been very much tuned, and they are scaling to almost 4,000, 8,000 nodes, millions cores. So can those kind of MPI libraries directly be used also for deep learning in addition to HPC? So in this context, let me introduce the MHAPIS2 project. Divya introduced that in the introduction. So this is a project which my team members and I have been working for almost 19 years. This project started almost the day one of InfiniBand. Prior to that, we were working on MPI libraries and optimizations for Mininet, Quadrix. So those were the old technologies. So when InfiniBand came up in 2000, we were the very first ones to jump in and have the MHAPIS 1. It was an MPI 1 semantics. And in 2001, we actually demonstrated the first open source version in Supercomputing 2002. And since then, like for the last 18 years, continuing on this work. So this is the latest, the website. We have a lot of different versions. Today, I'll be only focusing on two of these. One is an MHAPIS2X, and one other is MHAPIS2 GPU direct RDMA. And currently, these libraries are being used by more than 3,000 organizations. Just from OSU website, as of now, we have crossed like almost 760,000 downloads. And of course, our library is integrated with a lot of other software stacks, Red Hat, SUSE, OpenHPC, SPAC. We are a partner in the 5th ranked TAC Frontera system. It is running there in a production manner. It is also enabling a lot of these top 500 systems over the years. If you take a look at the third one, the 5th Frontera, ABCI, Neurion, so all these systems are trying to use our libraries to get the best performance. So in this context, what we have done in addition to trying to satisfy the HPC users, we have taken this Horobird stack, and on top of the Horobird, so you have already these TensorFlow, PyTorch, and MXNets, they are being supported. So what we have done below, we have actually linked our MPI library. So I'll be talking two versions here. One is for the CPU-based training, and another is for GPU-based training. So we have a dedicated project page called HIDL, High Performance Deep Learning. So if you go into more to this web page, you can download the user guides, how to configure the stacks to run it on any kind of a systems, like either it is an InfiniBand or Rocky. You should be able to try to get similar performance, and even Omnipath system. So anywhere our MPI libraries run, you should be able to run it on. And on Friday, I'll be giving another talk. We also have our MHAPIS2 stack has a version for AWS on the EFA adapter. I'll be talking about that. We also have a version running on the Azure. So there currently we are supporting only HPC, but we are working with these both Azure and AWS to move to also the deep learning side, so that you can also use our MPI stack on these cloud environments for deep learning. So let me then first start with CPU-based deep learning. This is using the MHAPIS2X library. Then I'll try to go into the GPU-based deep learning, use the MHAPIS2 direct RDMA. So whenever you try to do some CPU-based training, as many of you know, these days, like we have number of cores are increasing per node. So of course, then in that case, there is a lot of issues happens, like saying what should be the batch size per processes. So we did a study. So in a very in-depth study, this was presented in Cluster 2019. You can take a look at this. So here we saw that when people are trying to like let's run some ResNet 150 here, depending on the batch sizes and how many processes per node you use. Many times the default people always say, okay, I have 56 cores, I'll just run only one process and all 64 threads. So that may not be good. So here we try to do a lot of in-depth analysis. So here if you see the batch sizes like 16, 32, and 64, we found out that for batch size of 64, 4 ppn is better, whereas for the batch size of 32, 8 ppn is slightly better. So always the objective should be try to start with a one node and try to see how effectively you can do adjustments here. So here again, it says a single process versus multi-process study on the ResNet 152. So always the multi-process is better for all effective batch sizes. So here we are able to, in fact, using multi-process model compared to the single process, just within one node, we are able to give, in fact, up to 1.35x better performance. So that is not only for just one particular model. So here we try to, again, do this not only for ResNet, like a 50, 101, 152 inception models. So as you can see, if you just use a single process model, the images per second is low. So that means performance is not good. But if you use some MPI tuned, as I showed some of the numbers earlier, you can actually get very good performance compared to the single process case. So I think that should be the very first goal if you are trying to utilize CPU-based training. So you make sure that you do the tuning first with respect to the batch sizes and how many processes you will be running. And then with that, we were able to scale these. So these are taken from the TAG Frontera. This is, as I indicated earlier, it is the number 5th system in the world. So we scaled the TensorFlow. Here you will see up to 2048 nodes. So each node has 56 cores. So if you do a quick math, it is almost like a 110,000 plus cores we are trying to run. And very interestingly, not only you get like a 260,000 images per second, if you use like 2,000 nodes, the ResNet 50 can be trained in just 7 minutes. You can just take a few sips of coffee, and then you will see that your training is already done. So I just want to highlight that. So it is not only just that the GPU-based trainings are there, you can also try to utilize CPU-based training for the deep learning domain. And we also try to study on the same, like the MRAP/X on the TAG Frontera, not only just TensorFlow, but we also try to run PyTorch, MXNet, Keras. Just try to see, this is a snapshot. As you know, these frameworks are continuously changing. So here we are able to see that the TensorFlow was delivering almost 2.13x better than the PyTorch, and it was around 1.7x better than the MXNet. Again, since these frameworks are continuously changing, you need to do those evaluations at any given point of time, take the different versions and see which of the framework gives you the best performance. Now, we also heard earlier in Rasika's talk and some QA, a lot of these distributed deep learning applications are very much sensitive to the performance collectives. And in that context, all-reduce is one of the important one, but gradually a lot of other kind of collectives are also being used, like the BCAS, reduce, the newer DLRM from Facebook is trying to use all-to-all. And in fact, all these collectives, as many of you know, MPI libraries have been optimizing these for almost last 13 years on all different platforms. So if you use an MPI library, all these solutions just come to free for you. You don't have to do anything more. So here I'm just trying to show one of the study we did. This was a paper which was presented in IPDPS 2018. Here we used a effective shared address space reduction based collectives. There is a module called XPMEM, which actually allows you to have very fast communication within the node. As the number of cores are increasing, this is a kernel-based support. It tries to optimize all reduce, and that again here you can see it has a very good impact on even over the applications. We are able to compare to Intel MPI, the basic MVAPIS 2. This MVAPIS 2 XPMM is trying to give us performance benefits of 9% to 20%. So these kind of modules are already available in the MVAPIS 2 X release for some time. So then over the years now, we are also trying to explore different kinds of parallelism. As most of you know, like data parallelism is being used, but then the question is newer kinds of model parallelisms are coming. And in this case, we explored CPU-based hybrid parallelism. So this is trying to show how you can use we call it high par. So here, as you can scale to number of nodes, you can actually have different flexibility to how many partitions you need to create and over how many nodes. So here you can see this blue line up to 128 nodes, we are able to get very good performance using this kind of the hybrid parallelism. This was based on ResNet 1000. And in fact, this paper will be presented in 2 weeks at the ISC 2020. And these numbers were taken on the Stampede 2 cluster at TAC. So these have like a Skylake and Skylake nodes. And we were able to get on 120 of these nodes, we are able to get a speed of 110x. And then we continued this hyperflow to more number of nodes. Here it is trying to show like a 512 nodes on the TAC Frontera. And here we are able to get the total cores are like 24,000 cores, and ResNet 1000, we are able to get like a 253x speed up on 256 nodes and 481x speed up on 512 nodes, and very good efficiency. Almost we are like 98%, 93%. So once again, I'd like to stress that if you have access to CPU clusters, you should be able to carry out this kind of deep learning using the CPU resources. So now let me move to the GPU-based deep learning. And some of you might be familiar. We have been working heavily on this GPU direct RDMA for many years. So here it shows like we have a specialized and optimized version called MVAPIS 2 GPU direct RDMA. And as it can show, like this, take a look at this number. In 1.85 microsecond, we can actually send data from one GPU on one node to another GPU on another node. And this is very high performance. I'm very proud of my team who has done this design. We introduced this concept in 2010. And then since then, a lot of MPI stacks are actually trying to utilize the similar concept. So using these, the GPU direct RDMA, let me try to show some numbers, performance numbers with all reduce, because all reduce is very critical, as we know. So if we can optimize the all reduce, then it directly gets translated into higher level performance. So in this one, we are trying to compare. So this is like our latest release. In fact, we made a release just Friday last week. This is the MVAPIS 2 GDR234, and here we are comparing with the Nickel 2.6. That is from NVIDIA, which is the latest version from NVIDIA. And this is the message. These are the small and medium messages, and these are very large messages. So here you can see we are able to deliver all reduced level latency almost 4.7x better for short messages. And even for the a 1 meg, 2 meg messages, we are able to deliver almost 2.5x better performance. And then this is also the similar kind of things. We are trying to see, this is on the ABCI system. So this is the system in Japan dedicated for AI-oriented operations. And again, here you can see similar kind of performance benefits we can give for small messages. We give almost 8x better performance, and then up to very large messages, even 128 meg and 256 meg, we are able to deliver 1.6x better. So then this is on another platform, which is the Summit. As you know, this is the #1 system at the Oak Ridge National Lab. This has not only has the Voltage GPUs, 6 GPUs per node, it also has the open power platform. So here we are able to scale up to 1536 GPUs. So this is we are able to get a 1.6x better performance here. For very large messages, we are also able to deliver higher throughput. And the bandwidth, if you see the scaling, our numbers here, this is this line. We are able to perform far better than other MPI stacks and also the nickel. And for some of these libraries, these things were even not running on very large number of GPUs. So we are able to deliver performance in a much more scalable manner. And this is a number on the DGX2. As I introduced earlier, like NVIDIA has this the dedicated system, which is DGX2. So here we are trying to do ResNet 50 training using 6 TensorFlow benchmarks. Again, this is the very latest version. Here we are comparing with the earlier Nickel 2.5, but here we are not only able to give you like a 9% benefits in terms of the images per second, but if you take a look at the scaling efficiency, we are able to do very good scaling efficiency compared to the Nickel library. And then using the same framework, here this is the we try to scale on the Summit using 1536 Volta GPUs. The earlier numbers were all reduced, but here actually we are trying to carry out the distributed training with TensorFlow and MHAPPY2 GDR. So this one here we use the ImageNet 1K. It has 1.2 million images, and in these runs, you see we are able to scale starting from 1 GPUs to 1500 GPUs. This was done using a little bit earlier version of our stack. We have not been able to run this one recently to getting access to the system. So if you do these numbers indicate like time per epoch, it's just only 3.6 seconds. And using that, we can actually train ImageNet 1K in 1.2 million images in just less than 5.5 minutes. Okay? Earlier I showed like on the CPU, it was like a 7 minutes kind of things. Another example, but here it is a ImageNet 1K. We are using GPU, we are using the high performance InfiniBand and able to do very impressive deep learning within a minute's kind of time frame. So those are mostly the TensorFlow numbers. Recently, we are also looking at other deep learning frameworks. So this is a very fresh number. We are trying to run PyTorch. So again the PyTorch together with Horobot, the diagram which I showed earlier, and this is again running on the Summit, which is the #1 system. And we are comparing the very latest release, what we have done, and compared to the latest Nickel 2.6. So as you can see, as we are scaling with a number of GPUs, the MPI-driven solution, like especially with MHAPPY2 GDR, is trying to provide higher and higher performance improvement. And the latest numbers we got was with 768 nodes, and here we are able to get almost 1.5x higher performance than somebody using the Nickel library. So that is kind of the traditional GPUs with the Voltas. But recently there have been also like a Frontera, that is the #5 system in the world. If you see, it has some nodes with RTX GPUs. So these are kind of the different varieties which have been brought up from the desktop GPUs. So we try to run using these RTX 500, 5000 are the NVIDIA GPUs targeted for data centers. So they support here both the GPU direct RDMA and also GDR copy. So here again, we try to use our MHAPPY2 GDR, and here we are seeing the scaling is good. Of course, they are not as good as other systems like, let's say, Lassen or Summit, which use Volta GPUs. And here, these nodes are connected with InfiniBand FDR only, not the HDR. And there is also no NVLink between the GPUs. So the performance, absolute performance is a little bit lower compared to the previous ones. But it shows that you can actually have, if you have data centers with this kind of RTX GPUs, you should also be able to utilize those for your deep learning applications. So with this, let me conclude my talk here. What I indicated here, like scalable distributed training is getting very important, and it requires high performance middleware designs while exploiting modern interconnects. And in that context, message passing interface or MPI libraries have been there for many years. So they have been used for HPC applications, but one can actually now use the same MPI-driven solutions to achieve scalable distributed training. And I showed some of the numbers for TensorFlow and PyTorch, but you can also do similar things for MXNet. And more details on the solutions and the uses are available from these two sites. This is the site, project site I introduced, high performance deep learning. And this is our MPI MPI library site. So please feel free to download if you have MPI running on any of your cluster with InfiniBand, Rocky, Omnipath, iWork, or any of those interconnects. You should be able to download our stacks and then directly utilize that for your deep learning applications. And we hope that these solutions will continue to enable the DL community to achieve scalability and high performance for their distributed training, and while trying to exploit scale out. So with this, let me thank you, all of you, for listening to this talk. These are our websites, and this is my email, and I'll be happy to answer some of the questions now. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to me by email, and I'll be happy to answer those later. Thank you.
Dr. Panda, we have a question or two here, so I will pick them up now. So it appears that the node scaling with GPU is not as linear as scaling with CPU nodes. This was seen with even smaller nodes, a smaller number of GPU nodes like 64 versus 2048. Can you elaborate more on this observation?
So the thing is, when we are trying to show, I think in this case, let's say we are taking like a one GPU as the base case, okay? So you need to see what is the base performance of one CPU node or one GPU node, and then we are trying to scale. And then in some of the systems, you will see, for example, let's say Summit. So when we are trying to show, let me go back to a Summit number here. So in this case, you see the 6 GPUs. So Summit has 6 GPUs within the node. Okay. So here we are trying to do scale up, and then beyond that, we are trying to do scale out. Okay. Whereas if you go back to the CPU, let me go back to a Frontera. Yeah. So this is like a one node, which is like a 56 cores, and then we are directly going outside. So these are the scale out numbers. So you need to take what is the baseline and then see how the performance you are trying to get.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to submit through the panel. We have 1 more minute. If I can take additional questions, I can utilize the time. Dr. Panda, I'd like to use this opportunity to thank you for your time. Like you said, hopefully next year we'll be there for a face-to-face workshop, March 16th through 18th in the Ohio State University. So just so you know, today your talk was attended by over 100 participants. There are questions online asking about the presentation. I like the attendees to know that it will be available by end of day today. Dr. Panda, please go ahead, share your presentation with our OFA members.
Sure, I'll do
our
that.
Website. Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one question before you leave, since there is 1 minute, I'm going to use it. What is the scaling efficiency with GPUs?
It again, the scaling efficiency, let me go back to this slide. It again depends on, I think here. So it depends also how they are connected. You see, in this case, it is the DGX2, so they are connected with NVLink. So that actually will determine how you are connecting to the GPUs within a node and how it is outside. And of course, the best kind of efficiency you will try to get it on the Summit kind of system, Summit or Lassen, where you have NVLink within the node and InfiniBand outside. So these are the two most high performance interconnects these days, and that will help you get the best efficiency and best performance.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thanks,
Those are all the questions.
Thank you.